currently in the building, but there's milk coming apparently. Mel and I will send out some SOS messages to someone to bring some milk. So if you are wanting a coffee, you might just need to hold off till the milk arrives. Thank you all for attending. So this morning we have a lovely guest speaker that is Melbourne, I want to say you're from? Melbourne?
No, Gippsland.
Gippsland, oh, you know.
On the other side.
So she's travelled all the way for us today. So we have CORRINE AMOUR. I knew I was going to say that right. So today our speaker is a leadership expert with an extraordinary life story. She's here to help us access our untapped potential and have courageous conversations and build trust and move us all forward. Our speaker is Australia's leading thinker in fearless leadership. She gets first-hand challenges and competing priorities of the leadership because she's been there over 10 years in corporate leadership roles. 2.5 years living and teaching in the jungle on the edge of a war zone, and almost 15 years in the out of boardrooms working with senior leaders. She's gained lots to share about leadership. She has written 2 books on leadership and 2 specialist texts on human behaviour used by consultants worldwide. Her work with senior leadership teams has rippled effects across the globe. At home, she's married to an now don't ask me to pronounce that one. Gorilla fighter and mother to 2 beautiful daughters, so she knows a thing or two about life balance. Ladies and gentlemen, please make some noise for the author of Leaders Who Ask, CORRINE AMOUR.
Thank you. Well done. But do you want to talk about the...
Oh, yes.
Or do you want me to?
It's turned out to you. You
Okay.
probably can if you like.
Okay.
You can set your space if you like.
Beautiful. Thank
No
you.
worries. I'll leave it.
So just before we start, let's go with Vegas rules. So the idea of Vegas rules is what goes on in Vegas stays in Vegas. That way you can have some good conversations, you can talk to one another, you can use specific examples. If that's helpful, you can ask me questions, and then when you leave, it stays in this room. So are we all okay with that? Great. Now, it might seem a total contradiction to have just set that up and then say, yeah, but haven't you got video cameras running? So I'm being videoed because I'm doing an accreditation, but we will edit out all of the conversational bits. So you can just, now that I've made a big thing of them, just pretend I didn't even mention them and they're not there. So also before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting today on the lands of the Gunditjmara people and acknowledge elders past, present and emerging. And my understanding from a friend who I'm stayed with over the weekend in Hamilton, is that Hamilton was actually a meeting place of the Gunditjmara and 2 other local groups. And so this is a place where for 40 or 60,000 years we've come together to tell stories and to meet and to trade goods and ideas. So we can continue that this morning. So what risks do your greatest strengths pose? It's kind of a bit counterintuitive, isn't it? Like, my strengths, surely they're good for me, but they're not always. So I'll give you a minute now, perhaps just turn to the person next to you. What sense do you make of this? What risks do your greatest strengths pose to your career? So a minute with the person next to you. Thank you. We'll come back to that. We'll come back to that later. So I'm interested, who's ever worked with a fantastic team? Like a really good team? Almost half, more than half of you, almost all of you. Good. I wish that for everybody, that you've at least once worked with a fantastic team. So who loves their team now? Like, good. You know, you don't have to. Okay. Yep. Stacey's got that bit. Is that because you want to dance, or because it's a bit of up and down?
Just got a few that I'm involved in, and they've all got super complicated.
Yeah, a few that are involved in, that's it. Because when we say team, it's not just our work team, is it? It could be our family team or our sports teams or other teams that we're involved in the community. Who doesn't love their team? Actually, don't answer that. Okay, you can, Kelly. That might be a bit incriminating this early in the morning. So let's move right on. So a number of years ago, I worked with a fantastic team, and it was a job that I loved. I was 2IC of a $224 million program that was going to revolutionise the way we conducted branch banking across Australia and New Zealand. And I can see by the expressions on your faces, you're really excited by that as a subject, right? How good would that be? Branch banking, yes, good. So this was my first really big people leadership role. And for those of you under 40, you might not have had this experience, but back then, I had a big technology budget, and so all of the corporate suppliers wanted to know me. So there was invitations to the cricket and the tennis and the ballet. So it was a fabulous job, and I worked really hard, and I got a lot out of it, and I put a lot into it. And I was really lucky at that time. Oh, here's our milk saviour. Thank you. So if anybody wants milk at some point for a coffee, you can do that, or a tea. So at this stage, I had a fantastic mentor, and her name was Linda. She used to give me wise counsel. Now, I'd walk in feeling unsure, and I'd walk out of a conversation with Linda feeling really good, feeling like I had a way forward. And maybe you've had that experience yourself. You know, a mentor, someone who believes in you, even at times when you might not believe in yourself. You know, maybe it was a boss or a colleague, and maybe you called them mum and dad. And maybe you're that person for somebody else. So thinking back over your career, just share with the person next to you. Maybe we'll go to the other side this time, because you don't want the people on the other side to think that you think they don't look interesting. So, yeah, or you might need to turn around if you're at the end. So just share with the person next to you a story of where you have had a mentor of some description and how they made you feel. So just concentrate on that feeling. Sorry?
Some people are taking it.
Great, thank you. So Linda was that person for me. And one morning she called me into her office and she said, "Corinne, it's fabulous having you on the team." So I was immediately feeling good. You know, clearly she was fabulous if she could see how fabulous I was. I said, "It's fabulous to have you on the team." She said, "People gravitate towards you. We love your results focus. We love how much you're always thinking about the end customer and your deep understanding of the business." So by this stage, I'm feeling pretty good, like this was a good start to the day. And she said, "Corinne, we love your passion and your energy." And then she said, "But." Yeah, it's never a good thing in it. Like when someone builds you up, it's like, shh, they pull the carpet out from under you. But actually, anything we say before the but is negated. So if I give you a little example of this, like, "It's fabulous to work with you this morning, but I worked with a great crowd on Friday." So what do you take from that? Yeah, you're not as good as them. But if I said, "And you're a great crowd, and I worked with a good group on Friday," it's like, it's a different meaning, isn't it? So Linda says, "We love your passion and your energy, Corinne, but you need to learn when to tone it down because some people find you a bit overwhelming." Now, that hurt. Like, I felt completely shattered. Like, what do you do when someone says something like that to you? And Linda went on to say that, some people loved my energy and it drew them towards me, but other people felt like I filled up the space and there wasn't enough room for other people to be passionate. So I went home that night and I couldn't get what Linda said out of my mind. Now, if I'm being perfectly honest with you, that wasn't the first time I'd had that feedback. I'd been given different words, similar feedback over my career. And my husband's Burmese, or from Myanmar, so he came into Australia as a political refugee, and his English was pretty poor when he arrived. He still gets his words a bit confused. But he says to me, "Corinne, you push too much," which is his way of saying exactly what Linda said. And so I was thinking about this overnight, like, what do you do with that kind of feedback? How can you change? And I actually didn't want to change. I wasn't ready to change because along with my knowledge of the business, it was my passion and my energy that had got me to that point of success. And I wasn't ready to change just yet. Now, around that time, I did a secondment to a community organisation. So I went to work with the CEO for 4 weeks. It was part of a leadership development program. And this guy was a real character. And in our initial conversation, one of the things he wanted me to do was to come to his executive team and to observe and to offer feedback. So that was the first thing I did. So I came to the executive team Monday morning. I got in there early because I wanted to just get a sense of it before everyone else arrived. So they walked in, one or two at a time, conversation. There's just the usual Monday morning stuff. Lots of really good energy in the room. Just the quiet buzz you get as people start a meeting. And then Jim walks in. Actually, he didn't walk in, like he bounds in like this bundle of energy and he throws his papers down on the table and he says, "Right, let's get happening." And what happened next was fascinating because half the room were leaning in, engaged, ready for action. But the other half, it was like this wall had come up between Jim and them. Some of them even seemed to get physically smaller and they were just disengaging. And I was just watching thinking, this is fascinating. Now you might be wondering, if I was in that room, who would I have been? Now would I have been in the ones that leaned in or would I have been in those that sat back? And regardless of which group you're in, you're probably having the realisation that I had in that moment. It hit me just like this bolt of lightning. That's what Linda was trying to tell me when she talked about energy. And I knew in that moment what Jim didn't seem to realise yet, that too much energy could actually get in the way. Now, isn't that fascinating? Like, energy is really important. Passion communicates how valuable things are. Nothing gets done if we're really not willing to put in that energy. And yet in that moment, I realised that too much energy or misdirected passion can actually go against your cause, can turn people against what you're trying to work for. Like, Jim was trying to do the right thing. His intention was good. He wanted to bring people along with him. He wanted to get them enthusiastic, excited about the work. But actually, he was a bit like a cyclone, barreling forwards and leaving people behind in this, some people behind in the disengagement and devastation of a cyclone. And what we're really talking about here, when we're talking about behaviour, is we're talking about engagement. So I'm going to just do a little bit of an experiment here, a simple experiment. So can I have 4 volunteers? I promise it won't hurt. So who's willing to stand up and join in? Trevor, thank you. That's 1. Di, 2. Melissa, 3. And 1 more. Stacey, 4. Thank you. So can I get you to stand up? And so we count me in this too. So here we have 5 fabulous, engaged leaders. That's beautiful. Can everyone do what Trevor just did? He's just straightened up his shoulder and he's smiling. He's engaged. Yep. 5 fabulous leaders. Yay, thank you. So we're not representing ourselves though. We're representing people across Australia in the workforce. So we're 5, so we're each representing 20% of the Australian workforce. So let's think about engagement now. Who thinks, if we thought about organisations, not just Southern Grampians Shire, but if we thought right across Australia, who thinks that all 5 of us would be engaged? Nobody? Right, okay, so I'll sit down. If I can sit on this, is this safe? Yep, this is safe. All right, so now we've got 80% of the workforce. Now, fine, upstanding, enthusiastic leaders. Who thinks that 80% is engaged? No? Okay, Stacey, you can sit down. Thank you. Remember, she's representing people everywhere. She's not just her. All right, so what about 60%? Who thinks 60%? Geez, we're not doing very well, are we? You'll go 60. Thank you, Jane. We've got a vote here, but sadly, Di was right. Di, you can sit down. So 40%. 40% of employees across Australia engaged. Okay, raise your hand. We've got a few yeses and a few nos. All right, so we've got 4 or 5 people with a yes. Di's leading the charge for no, because she's sitting down now. She can. Yep. Sorry, Trevor, you'll need to sit down too. So Melissa represents the 20% of people who are engaged. So this was Gallup's most recent survey. So can I just get you all to stand up again? And can everyone just clap? Thank you for those of you who are brave enough to stand up. Thanks, Melissa. So how's that for career impact? So if you were to be honest with yourself, are you in the 4 or are you in the 1? And if you're in the 1, if you just like sneakily glance a look around you, because statistically 4 people immediately around you would rather be somewhere else doing something else with someone else. Like, that's not good for our careers. It's not good for everybody else's careers, and it's certainly not good for the community if you're representative here of the rest of Australia. And that's a challenge. And my hypothesis is whether you think you are in the 1 or the 4, that's directly related to the leadership that you experience. Because as leaders, we can bring out the best in the people around us, and our leaders have the ability to bring out the best in us. And that's important because leadership matters. Like, we know it matters because we can feel it, but we can measure it too. Deloitte did some research looking at stock market analysts and how they value public companies. So not not local government, but publicly listed companies, and they determined that almost 16% of the value that they put on a publicly listed company was based on their assessment of the depth of leadership across the organisation. So the converse is true as well. That's a 16% hit on your share price if you have poor leadership. And we can think, well, that doesn't happen for us because we're local government, people aren't investing in us. But they are. Think about when the state government and the federal government makes grant decisions. They're making a direct financial investment in you. When people decide to come and work with you, they're making a significant investment of their labour and their energy. And even community members, when community members begrudgingly pay their rates, or they pay their rates knowing, I went to your swimming pool yesterday, how fantastic is it to have a swimming pool that you don't pay for? And it's such a gorgeous swimming pool. So if I was paying my rates, yay, die! It was fantastic. If I was paying my rates, would I be begrudging that, or would I be thinking, well, I've got the swimming pool, and I've got the parks, and I've got all the other fabulous things that are return on my investment when I'm paying my rates across the Shire. So leadership matters, and leadership can be tricky. And one of the reasons that leadership can be tricky is that we judge ourselves by our inner intentions. You know, what I know I'm intending to do, what I'm planning for here. But other people judge us on our external behaviours. Yeah, so some of you are smiling, that's resonating already. And when I talked earlier about me as a cyclone, and my intention was good, I wanted to bring people with me, I wanted to get people excited, I wanted to keep them motivated on the end goal. So that was my intention, and that was positive. But some people were experiencing my outside behaviour and finding it alienating. So think to a time where you might have thought you were communicating one thing, and yet people were experiencing something different. You know, maybe they didn't respond. Maybe they responded in a way that you were surprised by. And a mess can be created between humans so easily. You know, maybe you were in a meeting and you were actively communicating. You know, you were really involved. You were giving all your best ideas, and yet other people judged you as taking over. Or maybe the opposite was true. Maybe you were sitting, thinking, working out what you thought about things, and people thought you were withholding ideas. Or maybe even worse, maybe they thought you were sitting and silently judging them. Maybe you were. People are complicated. You know, working with them, buying from them, selling to them, you know, living with them. If any of you have other people in your household, you know exactly what I mean. People are complicated. We are complicated. And this idea of our inner intention, aligning our inner intention with our outside behaviour, is fundamental to the 12 leadership derailers, which is what we're going to explore today. So we're much more powerful as leaders when we can align our inner intention with our outside or our external behaviour. So all our behaviour is motivated, all of our behaviour. But where do our motivations come from? They come from things like our workplace. You know, are you laughing because your workplace doesn't quite look like that, Di? Yeah, that one's it's quite artistically arranged, and yeah. So our behaviour comes from, you know, the environment. Sorry, not our behaviour. Our motivations come from the environment that we're in now. Comes from our culture. You know, the culture that we grew up in, the culture that we're surrounded by now. Comes from our values and beliefs, the things that we hold to be true. From our family. These are my two gorgeous girls when they used to be gorgeous. They're now 17 and 14, and they're not quite this gorgeous, not very often. But our family influences our motivations. Our education. This is me. I was the first in my family to go to university. So on my graduation day, I was so proud. But I'm looking back on that now, I'm not quite too sure about that haircut. I'm not quite so proud now, but that was the 80s. And one of the reasons that I was so proud on graduation day is that I grew up on a farm. So I grew up on a farm in West Gippsland. Never thought that university would be in my history. Now, who else grew up on a farm? A couple of you, yes. The best life, the best life. You know, everybody else around me was learning to drive in a Tirana or a Gemini, but I learnt to drive in a forklift. So I was going to say, Lisa's gone. I could have gone to the depot and helped her move things around with my excellent forklifting skills. So this was a fabulous childhood. My best friend was a horse, Gypsy, and she used to take me everywhere, including to my piano lessons. So I would ride her down to Mrs. Harris's house at the end of the road and tie her up to the front fence. And on sunny days, I would tie her up very loosely. And then about halfway, I didn't like piano, about halfway through the piano lesson, she'd pull off. And I would have to go out, catch her, tie her back up to the fence, come back in, and I'd miss most of the piano lesson. So how's that for engagement? But my childhood shaped who I am and how I lead today. I grew up in an apple orchard, dairy farm and an apple orchard. So my mum would take me into the packing shed on Tuesdays and Thursdays. She packed apples. And she put me in one of these really big bulk bins, and she would give me some apples and some old rusty nails. And she'd say, "Go on, honey, make something." Now, maybe I should have reported her to child services, but I didn't. I got creative. Porcupines were my favourite thing. So I made lots of porcupines, dinosaurs, anything that I could. I used my creativity. And really, that's all innovation is. You know, we talk now about, we need more innovation across the organisation. But all innovation is using what we've got, using the resources in different ways to produce different outcomes. So thinking about yourselves, are you using all of the resources around you? Are you drawing on them in creative ways? Or are you more inclined to focus on what you don't have and use that as an excuse for not getting the things achieved that you want achieved? So your childhood, how has that influenced who you are and how you lead today? The good thing is, though, we're not stuck. Now, our motivations can change over time. And time and leadership's interesting connections, how we invest our time, how we talk about time. Has anyone been to Texas? A little bit of a yeehaw? No? No. So this is a mountain just outside Van Horn, which is in the westernmost part of the US Central Time Zone. And they're building a clock in the middle of this mountain. And it's not just any clock. It's built out of marine grade stainless steel. It's 100 foot high and it's powered by energy from the sun. Yeah, so Kelly's face is sort of going, why are they doing that? Why are they doing that? Very good question. Because they're making a point about long-term thinking and the importance of building something that lasts, because this clock is going to tick for 10,000 years. It's going to last for 10,000 years. It ticks once a year. It's got a century hand that moves every 100 years. So if you think it's a long time till lunchtime in Hamilton, try living in Van Horn. It's got a cuckoo that comes out once every 1,000 years, like cuckoo, once every 1,000 years. So yeah, that'd be worth waiting for. But the thing is, you don't have 10,000 years. You only have now. Like, to make an impact, we need to align our intention with our behaviour, and we need to do it now. To have the careers and the leadership that we want, we need to architect the impact that we want to have. So a little check-in, like, how are you going? Are you achieving everything that you've set out to achieve? Are you using a little bit more of your potential every day? Are you becoming the leader that you would like to be? Who watches the design shows on TV? Anyone interested in that? Yeah.
Every day.
Every day? So she'd be excited about the new series of Grand Designs Australia then? Yeah. I'm not that keen on them, but my mum is like your wife, Roger. She loves them. But the fascinating thing is, regardless of what they're building, it all starts with just one blank piece of paper and one person sitting down drawing, like literally designing the end house. And if you're not mindful of design in that early stages, then you end up with a building that you don't want to live in, a house that doesn't suit your purposes. And this is the same for us in our leadership. We need to architect the impact that we want to have by aligning our intentions with our behaviours. So this is one of the books that I've written, Developing Direct Reports, and you'll get a copy of it this morning. And it's about the 12 leadership derailers. So not surprisingly, people often ask me, what is a leadership derailer? So think about it like a train. It's travelling along on its tracks and we're all happy. But something happens to cause the train to leave its tracks and then we're in trouble. And our behaviours are like that. And when we behave in ways that cause our train to leave the tracks, we're derailed. Ignoring a derailer, it's like driving a high-performance sports car with one foot on the brake and one foot on the accelerator. Like you're never going to reach top speed while you've still got your foot on the brake. So once we start to align our intentions and our behaviour and architect the impact that we want, then we can move these leadership derailers. Behaviours that happen that stop the full expression of our leadership, that stop us being the best that we can be. So there's 12 leadership derailers. We're going to go through them all. These are archetypal behaviours that you'll all recognise. Some of you will smile immediately and go, yep, that's me. I know that's me. And the trick is here, it's not do I have one, it's actually which one do I have. I was talking with the CEO, so this is the CEO of Metropolitan Council, and he was telling me about Holly. He'd recently promoted Holly to an executive position in an acting role. So it wasn't a permanent role, it was an acting role. And he wanted to give her the chance to really make her stamp on the role before they went out for a full recruitment campaign. But he said to me, I don't think Holly's going to get the role. And I said, why not? Because he'd already told me that she was popular, that she had really good relationships with the councillors and staff, that she had really good corporate history. And he said to me, Holly's a micromanager. He said she could cope with that at the manager level, but now she's at the executive level, she's getting stuck in things that aren't hers, and she's not able to focus on the strategic stuff that I need her to. So micromanagement was derailing Holly's leadership and derailing her career. That's a smile of recognition there, isn't it? Yep. I sent a copy of the book to this guy, who was the general manager of safety, and he said, I'd really like to meet up with you. So we had a coffee, and he pulls this book, this is his book, and he pulls it out of his bag, and as you can see, it's got lots of sticky notes in it, scribbles in the margins, highlighter text everywhere, and he says to me, I love this book. I said, great. He said, I love this book because I've diagnosed all my 5 direct reports. Excellent. And he said, and it's given me really good insights into how to work with my boss, who's not very effective. Said, great, double great. What about you? Nah, he said, nah. I'm a really well-balanced leader. That was not the right answer. I had immediate questions about either his level of self-awareness or his willingness to be honest, because we all have at least one derailing behaviour. So, are you curious? We're going to go through them. We're going to go through them in a pretty fast, speed dating kind of way. And I'd like you to be thinking about maybe what you might see, but also what would the people around you see? And if I had some of your team in the room, which ones might they think that you get tripped up by? And you've all got, you might be sitting on it, but you've all got the bookmark, which has got the derailers on the back. Has everyone got one? Great. All right, we ready? So, number one, the staller. If you're a staller, chances are you get stuck in analysis paralysis. People see you as a leader that takes too long to make decisions, so you miss deadlines and you miss opportunities. You're wanting to be thorough, but derailed. Number two, the controller. If you're a controller, chances are you've got command and control tendencies. Other people see you as a leader who provides excessive supervision. Now, while you think that you're just providing clarity, that's not the way other people experience you. Derailed. Number three, the cyclone. I am a card-carrying cyclone in active remission. I just need to say that as a full disclosure up front. So that cyclones go at things like a bull at a gate. Now, while cyclones, we just want to get things done, we need to take care because otherwise we leave people behind. Derailed. Number four, the doer. The doer struggles to delegate. Now, it's easier to do it yourself, right? So you might think that you're helping, you're protecting your team, but what they see is that you're hoarding work and responsibility. Derailed. Number five, the avoider. If you're an avoider, you might have a bit of conflict aversion here. It's something we can all relate to from time to time. Now, while your focus is on maintaining peace and harmony, your lack of willingness to lean into the tough conversations and the difficult situations pushes conflict underground and often makes the situation worse. Derailed. Number six, the fence sitter. This is our indecisive leader. So the fence sitter's wanting to gather all perspectives, to understand, to take time to make a decision, but what other people experience is that you're a blocker to progress. Derailed. Number seven, the know-it-all. Now, that sounds a little bit harsh, so we did take some poetic license when we described these derailers. So the know-it-all, other people see that you're closed to new ideas, not willing to take on suggestions. While you might think you know the best way forward, other people feel like you're stifling creativity and involvement. Derailed. Number eight, the guardian. This is an inability to innovate. You're focused on keeping things going the way they've always been because you can't see the sense in change for change's sake. But what other people see is someone not willing to change, not willing to try out new ideas. Derailed. Number nine, the micromanager. So we've already met Holly. This is management on a leash. This is providing lots of detail, getting involved in everything. And what other people experience you is a leader who doesn't trust. Derailed. Number 10, our poker-faced leader. Our poker-faced leader shows no emotion at work. With a non-expressive communication style, you may miss non-verbal cues. You believe that emotion don't belong in the workplace, but we need to see some emotion because we don't know where we stand. Derailed. Number 11, the people burner. People burner may have poor people skills, and that's probably something we can all work on. Now, while you think that your important focus is on getting the task done at the expense of the relationships, other people feel like you don't care about them. Derailed. And finally, last but not least, the tactician. So the tactician is focused on getting the job done today. But what other people see is that you're not able to think conceptually, not being across the big picture, not able to think strategically. Derailed. So that's our 12 leadership derailers as they're seen by other people. So remembering, just for the sake of the game, everybody has at least one derailer. I'll give you 5 minutes now. Perhaps stand up, find someone you haven't spoken to. And what you're talking about is which derailer do you suffer from? Which derailer gets in your way and what's the impact of that? So you've got 5 minutes with one other person. Stand up, find someone you haven't spoken to today. Which derailer might other people see in you? What have you decided, you, Alia?
I was the doer.
You're the doer?
I talked about that in the first question that we had as well, about just doing it myself.
Yeah, which is a strength, except when you dial it up too high.
Yeah.
And I'm the same. And I did too. I spoke about it in the first one as well. Because it just is easy. Sometimes it is easier just to do it yourself.
Yeah.
You've got to get out of that.
Not a good long-term strategy.
No, but you just realise everybody else is going to say, they're busy as well, so you don't want to, put extra on other people.
And so what you're starting to unpack there is what's that positive intention? Because there's positive intentions behind all of these, and sounds like yours is about protecting other people. But what you might be doing is protecting them from growing. are you curious what derailers we have in the room? Shall we do a little quick stand-up survey? Are you curious who's in the room? What derailers we have in the room? All right, so staller, stand up if you're a staller. No stallers, all right? No one's getting stuck in analysis paralysis. Controller? Cyclone. Yay! Yeah, you can half stand up. Mary, Trevor, Stacey. Doer. You can half stand up. Okay, so we've got quite a few doers. All right, thank you. Avoiders. You're going to stay. All right, we've got a few avoiders. Okay, fence sitters.
Oh, can I half stand up?
How many are you standing up for?
I'll sit down then.
All right, know-it-all. Yep, got a few know-it-alls. Beautiful. Guardian. Yep, thank you. Guardians. Micromanagers. No micromanagers. Micromanagers are a bit like bad drivers. Is anyone in this room a bad driver? Nah. And yet you've all seen them, right? Funny about that. Poker face. Yep, Mike's going to stand for poker face. People burner. Focusing on the task, not the people. Yeah. Thank you. Tactician. Thinking about the here and now and the immediate strategies and not the strategic. No? Sometimes, yeah. And these can be contextual too. When you change the context, what might be a strength in one place is not a strength in another place.
Does it also depend on the people doing the task as well? You know, like, I can be a micromanager with a team that I don't necessarily trust can actually do the job.
Yes, yeah.
But if there's other people that I trust can do the job, I have to let them go and do it.
Yes, yeah. So we could probably put up an argument, is that micromanagement or is that smart leadership? And only you can answer that, because sometimes that's an excuse that we use ourselves to say, well, I'll just get in and make sure they're managing it well. So I'll step into my micromanagement tendencies. But yes, sometimes we need to. And it might not be the whole team, it might be just one person where we need to give them much more specific, regular guidance. Yeah. So yes, it will depend on the context and it will depend on the team. Any questions at this point? We'll have some more time for questions later. Any questions now? All right. So who woke up this morning thinking, I'm going to bound out of bed and I'm going to head off to work and I'm going to commit some career limiting moves? No, we don't, do we? So all of these behaviours that we've just talked about, when we see them in others, they're really frustrating. But nobody does this deliberately. Nobody wakes up and comes to work wanting to undermine other people's success and enjoyment of work. So there's really positive intentions that sit behind these derailers. And I was going to take you behind too, but we may not, because one of them I wanted to take you behind, I think we didn't have anyone in the room. So we might do a bit of a change along the way. So we didn't have any stallers, did we? Can be on occasions. All right, so let's just play with that. So I just want to start to unpack this, the difference between the intention and the behaviour. So Robin, when Robin moves into stalling, what we see is this really frustrating analysis paralysis. Like, we've given her all the information we think she needs, but she won't make a decision because she still wants more. And it's so frustrating because in the meantime, the deadline is coming up fast. So Robin, what's the positive intention that sits behind this?
Want to get it right.
Yeah, absolutely. To get a solid quality outcome, to get it right. Because Robin knows that we can't hurry this. Quality is important and quality takes time. So she wants to cover all those perspectives and get to the right outcome. The challenge is, though, that we can't all see that. What we see is the frustration of the stalling. Who's worked with a staller? Yeah. Yeah, quite a few of you, yes. Now, we didn't, because we had so many IT challenges this morning, we didn't check if this would work. Let's just see.
Afraid of this. What? These instructions are a pictographic representation of the least imaginative way to...
Can you hear it? Yeah, okay, right. So, I thought I would just check that. Who's watched The Big Bang Theory? Yeah. It's not made anymore, but was very funny. Or still is very funny. So just watch this as we think about stalling.
Afraid of this. What? These instructions are a pictographic representation of the least imaginative way to assemble these components. This right here is why Sweden has no space program.
I haven't identified this, but if you find yourself in this situation, just take the information you've got, make a decision and keep moving forward. Thank you. And we had a couple of know-it-alls, didn't we? Was it Roger and Jane? Yeah. So what we see is like it's my way or the highway. And you might think you've got it sorted. But other people around you might think that you're only getting involved when you agree with the situation. What's the positive intention that sits behind this? That know-it-all is the frustrating behaviour that we experience. But Roger, what's the positive intention for you?
To make sure that the outcome is at least equal to what we've got, if not better.
Yeah, okay, so we're not going to go backwards. So make sure that it's at least as good as what we've got now. Jane, what about for you?
I did speak to Shire and I spoke about that, and that's probably you and I being not here as long as you, but being here a long time, knowing the history and knowing it's been done before, or yeah.
It didn't work quite so well last time. Yeah, okay. So often this shows the intention here is to back your strengths. You know, I've done it before, I've seen it before, I've got the idea, I know where I'm going. But it can look like being closed to new ideas. It can look like not welcoming input and suggestions from other people, which people might go along with for a short time, but sooner or later they get disengaged because they don't feel like their experience is being honoured in this process. Mary?
So can I just elaborate on that? And sorry, Jane, I don't want to take over your space, but there's a few of us in the room that have been around a long time.
Yep.
It's not to say that everything that was done in the past is better than what's being tried now, but there is evidence in history about things that have been done.
Yeah.
And sometimes there seems to be a lack of commitment to understanding the past.
Yes.
To inform a decision going forward. I don't know whether anybody else knows that, but there's a few nods on here. And sometimes I think that can be really frustrating.
Yeah.
It might be hard to find history, or it might be, oh yes, you know, that was a long time ago, or that was done by XYZ, so, you know, this is going to be different this time around. So I think sometimes that can be a real challenge for the organisation to actually embrace the best of the past and meld it into what we're doing or whatever, but not to ignore it or throw it out because it is the past.
Because it was the past, yeah.
And respect for that knowledge and
Learn from it.
history and
And that's the challenge, isn't it? Because your intention is to make sure that happens. Like, let me tell you about what's happened before so we can learn by that. But somebody else, their intention might be, no, I've got this great idea and I'm also perhaps being a know-it-all, but my knowledge is about this new fancy way of doing it.
Sometimes they're really big issues.
Yeah,
It's not, you know, minor things sometimes.
yeah. The more we're able to work out the intention of the other person, and then if we're trying to be influential, when we can understand what their intention is, we can try and work what we want towards their intention. And that can help. Because just as you might be feeling like your knowledge of the past or the stories that have gone before are not being heard, somebody who's trying to bring about a change might be feeling like their new future isn't being heard either. And then we end up with this oppositional cycle that doesn't help anybody. Yeah, thanks, Mary. Any other thoughts on the know-it-all?
There's also very few mechanisms in our organisation to probably tap into, I suppose, what Mary's just said, collective knowledge. You know, some people don't have managers, some people don't have directors. You know, we don't have meetings like this. We don't meet as a team. So I mean, our knowledge is kind of being used downward, but very rarely upwards. So, you know, it's just, I suppose, observational.
That's a real lost opportunity, isn't it? You're in what I see the most challenging role in the organisation. And the reason I think that is that you need to lead down, so you need to be across the detail of all of the roles of your people. Maybe not to the same extent that they are, but you need to be aware of them. So that's quite an operational role, but there's also an expectation that you'll have an understanding of the strategy and you can communicate upwards in the strategy. So it's a real translational role. Often too, if it's your first leadership role, then you're at the level that you're at, and you might be leading a team that last week were your peers. And then as you step into your first leadership role, if you're in your first leadership role in the same space, then that can be really challenging too.
I'll just raise something, and I won't take it now, but stay tuned till after this presentation with what you've said, Kelly, so there's a few more things happening.
Great.
We'll talk about at the end. I won't take over now. At the end, I'll chat about it.
Brilliant, brilliant. So there might be an opportunity to bring people together and yeah, fabulous. Because this is your phone a friend network. Like this is the group when you're really stuck on something. Maybe you ask your manager, or maybe you call someone in this room and say, hey Di, you know, I've got this challenge. Have you seen this? How did you handle it? This is where your support can come from. Yeah. Okay, thanks Mel. We'll make sure that we hear from you at the end. Edna Ferber was a novelist in the early 1900s. She actually wrote the book Showboat that went on to become the famous musical. When I was researching her, one of her earlier books was incredibly popular, and one of the critics wrote that this was an excellent book that was clearly written by a man taking a female nom de plume as a joke, because this couldn't have been written by a woman. And I love this. Like, a closed mind is a dying mind. Like, that's a big call, right? But do you want to risk it? Once you've closed your mind, what opportunity is there to keep learning and to keep growing and to keep developing? So some of you are thinking, good, we've got through that and I didn't have to share my story. We all have derailers, and it's your opportunity today to face into that To say, okay, right, if this is the challenge that I have, how do I better align my behaviour with my intention so that I get better outcomes, so that I keep my career on track? Because every person in the planet has at least one derailing behaviour. And it's the opportunity for all of us to just keep working on that. Like I said, I'm a card-carrying cyclone in active remission. I am still, if I get with a group of people who are also really high energy and enthusiastic, I can turn rapidly back into a cyclone. And I need to actively manage that. And I think I will for my whole career. Like I fix that. It's just, that's what I manage. Because it's my strength. Now, I'm high initiation, I've got good ideas, I've got a huge amount of energy, and I love people. They're all strengths. But when I dial them up too high, I become a cyclone. So it's that constant challenge of use our strengths, don't let them use us. So this is Adam. Adam was an IT contract project manager. He worked in big IT tech companies. Usually he was brought in by the chief information officer when the projects were going astray, and it was Adam that could bring them back on track and get them implemented. He got to the point in his career where he wanted to do something for the community. You know, he said to me, I just got to the point where I was sick of just working for shareholder value. So he saw an advertisement for a large metropolitan healthcare network in the community sector, not a private one, a community sector one. And so they had this chief information officer role first time. So they loved the fact that Adam had this fantastic experience, and what he loved was that sense of purpose. So it was perfect, except that it wasn't. And within about 4 weeks, Adam's key stakeholders were refusing to meet with him. He'd had a couple of people leave his team already. Projects were already starting to fall behind, and there was even suggestions of bullying. So Adam's executive general manager accused him of being a people burner. Now, Adam totally disagreed with that. And when you get feedback like this, you can do it the easy way or the hard way. And Adam chose the hard way. So he railed against this feedback for quite some time. And then the executive general manager contacted me and asked me if I would coach him. Just to make the situation even worse, she suggested because it was his professional development, he should pay half and the organisation should pay. Yeah, so you can get a sense of how happy he was to meet me in our first conversation. But in Adam's mind, he didn't have the problem because they couldn't find their way out of a wet paper bag. That was one of his explanations of the culture that he'd moved into. But to his credit, a week after his first meeting with me, he rang up 2 of the chief information officers that he'd worked for in the past. And he told them this story and he asked for their feedback. And in both instances, he got a really uncomfortable silence on the other end. And then I agree with that feedback. But it worked for me that you would come in and get projects done. So we came in along behind you after you left and cleaned up the collateral damage. So Adam had had this challenge his whole career but had never realised until he moved into the much more people-focused community sector. And so luckily for Adam, that second lot of feedback was enough to move him from denial into discovery. And so we talked about what's really going on here. Now, what's happening and what's the impact of this on your career? And then we were able to go behind that and decode what's really going on. Like, what's your positive intentions? What's motivating you in this behaviour? And we were able then to create a pathway forward. Within 4 months, Adam had the projects were all turned around and were back on track. He'd repaired the damage that he'd caused with his key stakeholders, and there were actually people now who wanted to come and work in Adam's team, which was all fantastic. For me, the most important thing was Adam was much happier. You know, for the first time for about 20 years, he was really happy in his career because he was able to discover what was happening, to decode what was really happening behind that, and then to design a pathway forward. So as I said, when you change contexts, then that can change the expression of a derailer. So we've got some time for questions. Let me just check. Yes, we've got some time for questions and for sharing insights. So there might be questions specifically about this, or you might want to go more broad if that's helpful, especially given, as Kelly said, you're not usually together. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes to talk to the person next to you. What questions would you like to ask? What reflections would you like to share? What insights would you like to share? So I'll give you 2 minutes to talk to the person next to you, and then we'll do some Q&A.
You're fine.
I meant to go to the bathroom.
Bathroom?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we turn this off for a minute?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, hang on. And this you could do that. And then
some of these different areas. I probably don't know whether I was really, I sort of sit, I think, between Cyclone and Dula.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure I was that before I started here. Probably the team that I did start here, that I inherited, has made me need to go into that space
Yes.
somewhat.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that I was that before I started.
Yeah, nice insight. So the challenge or the opportunity there is to go to where you think you need to go to meet them, and then start winding that back.
Yeah.
And do that slowly, and perhaps even explicitly by telling them, I've noticed I've been doing more of X, so that we can be more effective as a team. What you see is more of this instead.
Yeah.
And then that's an opportunity for you to reset.
Yeah.
We're incredibly grateful that Trevor is like that though. And actually getting stuff done.
Well, I was actually going to expand on that a little bit from an external side. I think you're also pushed a little bit that way from other elements within the organisation.
Yeah. Somewhat. Yeah.
It might be context dependent as well, like what resources you have, or to your point about like who's in those spaces, like do they need, you're not naturally maybe much of just a doer and like more in the tactics, maybe you've got the capacity to be that more strategic thinker, but you might not have the opportunity at that time, so you just get it done.
Get it done. Which is okay in the short term, but it's not a medium term to long term strategy. And that's sometimes our hardest work as leaders, is making our team lendable, and accountable. Yes. Yeah.
I have a question about, there's only 20% of our workforce that are actually engaged.
Yeah.
There's 80% who might be good at their job, they're just not enthused about it.
Yeah.
How do you change them to become that 20%?
Yeah.
That's a good question, and it's a big question. The only field you can influence directly is your own behaviour. So what is it about your leadership that can better engage them? So maybe that gives you another 2 out of 5, or even just 1 out of 5. If you just got 1 out of 5 more because you were more flexible in your leadership style, then that's a significant increase in productivity. Then you might need to then start looking at what's the impact of the people above you, and is there conversations there that you can have?
So say you're sitting in performance reviews and things like that, and you're doing, what would you like to do? Yeah. You know, you say that you've got these strengths and these strengths. How do you think you can use them in your role? Yeah. You know, what professional development do you want to do? What tasks do you want to work on? And those are very
So that there's
well, I can't write it thinking for them.
There's a concept of learned helplessness, which is where we come in enthusiastic and ready to challenge and participate, but we learn over time to be helpless and to be told what to do. So if you think about what have your people learned, was the person before you, for example, much more command and control? Therefore, when you come in, they're expected to be told because that's what they've learned. So there might be some insights in that.
I'm thinking about what else you just said there.
Some people don't want to keep late. They might be just very comfortable to come and do the same thing every day, but are they engaged in just doing that thing every day? So not everyone, and I appreciate this isn't going to be a very satisfactory answer, because the question that you just asked, like we could actually say, let's cancel, what's today, Wednesday? We're all going to be confused this whole week, I think. Let's cancel Wednesday and just work on that question. We wouldn't get it resolved by the end of the day. So I would start with, what can I do myself? Because that's where I have most influence.
Can I make a comment, Bill?
Yeah.
From my role, the engagement in your team has skyrocketed in the last few months. It has. So there has a reporting and all that stuff. For some reason, has just exploded. And I think that might be partly due to people acting up in different roles. So whatever you've done in the last few months has been really noticeable. Not to you, but me.
How good is that?
Yeah. Like
And smart. Yeah, well done. Sometimes it is useful just to get feedback from other people around you because you couldn't know what Mike just told you.
And they go back and say anything but really.
Why did you say because you think there's people in other roles?
I think probably people that have taken on other roles that enable them to do the things that they probably felt they wanted to do. Well, I don't know, whatever you feel it's a good job.
Yeah, there's people who are acting in different roles, like there's people moving around. But I think that also just brings a fresh perspective on things too. So that might be what it takes time. All of these changes take time. And I don't know whether, sometimes I almost decide to remove statistics like that one. Because how depressing is that? It's like, okay, well, I've got 36% engagement on my team, on almost twice the national average. Like, on one level, yay, that's great, but on another level, are we celebrating that? And I almost think, let's just ditch that and think about where are we and how can we keep just doing a little bit more every day.
What's the definition of engagement though? For what I think is an engaged employee might be very different to
Absolutely.
what's on our stick.
Yeah. And this one's Gallup, and I'm trying to think what their specific definition is. And they're all slightly different, like every engagement system is slightly different. But what they're talking about, one of the questions is usually been relevant to really the family that they work here. That's one of the indicators often that will lead to their total engagement score. And so it will depend, presumably you use People Matters. It's not part of the People Matters. Yeah, because that's the state government and the one that most councils use. Last question, Robin.
Do you feel that remote working has various challenges with the way that organised managers interact with their staff, and it's forced us to change some of our influence style?
Yes, I think that's definitely the case. Just the expectations people have now of being able to do some level of flexible working, they didn't have pre-COVID. So that if you run a boring team meeting now, face to face, it's not going to be any less boring online. So it can be harder, and it requires more effort to get those non-transactional conversations happening, where we're working online than when we're working face-to-face. So that is definitely more challenging.
Just saying that sometimes you'll have someone will come in and have just a quick snippet, they'll feel more comfortable dropping you this and asking you face-to-face than they will, and then specifically raising it online.
Yeah. Not for everybody, for most people, that's the case. There will be some people who are more comfortable with sort of the relative, almost anonymity of being online, but most people will be more comfortable face to face.
I think it's created a bit of the divide between indoor and outdoor stuff.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, you can't slash the lawn, the grass out here from your lounge room.
Yeah. Also a divide between people that are expected to turn up every day. It's not just customer service. And other people that don't get the opportunity to work from home. I know our team are expected to turn up every day.
Yeah. Some people get that access to it.
Yeah.
It's difficult for different teams as well, low consistency.
So you see that there. Yeah.
And it's not just local government, like this conversation we're having now is had in all the organisations that I work in. If you think about it, we had 50, 70 years of working out how to work together in situ. And then there was no guidebook to work the way we did. We're still working it out. One of the things that I liked, Robin, about
remote working, in particular for local government, is that the managers, I think perhaps less so coordinators, but managers were forced to trust. Because there was in a lot of local councils very much that if I can't see Jason work, I have no idea if he's working. In fact, he probably isn't. But, you know, we were working from home long enough to realise that actually most of us did keep working and worked fairly productively. I think the flip side of that too is I think people are still really challenged on a personal level about how to do that, how to stop work, and what's the boundaries. Again, particularly people in leadership roles, I think are working much harder and less effectively now than they were pre-COVID because work is bleeding into every aspect of life. And it's really hard to get that clear getaways at the weekend or even just for a day on the weekend because there's still, well, I still got my laptop there or I've still got my phone on.
The rise of technology.
Yeah.
You're expected to be available and...
Absolutely. Yeah. One of the reasons that leadership can be so tricky is because, as I said, we focus on our intentions, whereas other people look at our behaviours. And that's where it can be challenging to avoid slipping into these new-alien behaviours. But the good news is that you all have the potential to be fearless leaders, to be powerful, to come to work every day and create the kind of environment, whether it's online or virtual, that people want to come to and perform at their best. And to do that starts with discovering what's going on, then decoding what sits behind that, and then developing a pathway forward to better align our intentions with our behaviours. Now you could just let it go, leave it to chance, see what happens, or you can choose to align your intentions with your behaviour and be the leader that you have the potential to be. And I think that is pretty exciting. We all have the power to be fearless leaders. So go forward and lead fearlessly. Thank you. Before we have morning tea, do you want to share on you?
So just to give a bit of background on today. Today was sort of born out of me probably talking to Talia and saying how the coordinators don't have a space to talk and to get information. Like we've got, as you know, we've got ELT and we've got SLT. I also found, talking to a few of the coordinators, that stuff that had been given to managers, I'm not saying it's everyone, wasn't given down to us that have the people under us to know what's going on and what we need to do, whether there be new stuff in the EA or just things that are happening at the moment. So I sort of said to Talia, I would like to start up a group of coordinators because we're the supervisors that have the people under us. We're the ones that sort of are doing the day-to-days. It's not our managers, it's us that are dealing with the employees and the people under us.
So you have the direct impact on that engagement because the majority of people filling in any engagement survey are reporting to you.
Yeah, so it's just having that there. So this was just that first initial one. We're going to do a Teams group chat, so I'll put anything from a HR perspective that comes out that people need to know in there. So like for instance, it was one I was talking to a coordinator and saying how it was a 2-hour minimum engagement, which was in the enterprise agreement. Now that was spoken about and did come out, but they weren't aware of that. And we've also had to secure jobs, better pay thing that's come out with government, which is about fixed term contracts, which we can no longer do to a point. That's been pushed out to SLT and everyone. I don't know if that has come down, drilled down further to people, but there's just things like that that I think you guys or us as that level need to know and just to talk. I don't know how often you want to meet, I don't know what we want to do there, but when we maybe get the Teams group chat up, if you want to have a think about it, we can put it in there. But that's sort of where I want this to head, just so that we can all get together. And also I'm here, being in my HR space, if anyone needs me, that I'm here and happy to do within as well. But yeah, I just thought there's just not that level of sort of support and talk at our level for this kind of thing.
Thanks, Phyllis. Your favourite phrase back. Well done.
Thank you.
my encouragement to you would be to make it less about, okay, shut up and listen because we're going to, here's a whole lot of stuff you need, which is a bit ironic because that's just what I've done now. And actually more of a conversation, because there's smart people in this room who, any problem that any one of you have right now, there will be one person in this room, at least, who's had it and solved it. And there's probably one person who had it, tried to solve it and made a total fuck up. And you could learn from them about what not to do as well. So,
I think there's a real opportunity to share ideas of projects that come to organisation too. So it's not just passing down the information knowledge, but it's collaborating. I think when we do projects or do livers together, the output of those so yeah, when you come together like monthly, we used to do it. We used to have a group that coordinated settled. We met years ago, 2 years later, in this group, we would come together every month and we talk about community projects and priorities and the organisation that got canned into my expertise. So it was incredibly effective and awesome. So I think that would be awesome. Yeah. And so yeah, I want you to get in the Teams chat set up, and I think if you want to have a think of one that's up, we'll decide what the aim will from here.
So there's morning tea there. If the Gordon wasn't playing nicely this morning, there is a lady in charge, and there's cakes, and I will give Will a book. In reach.